find ourselves on one of your favorite maps. It's hard lead, let, we don't know anymore. Nobody knows. It is none other than Lambo, though, over here in the top left-hand corner of the map.
And spawning over in the bottom right, the Polish Protoss, it is Gerald.
Yeah, Gerald certainly has his moments. Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
Oh, I was going to say, Gerald's always been like an interesting Protoss for me. Like when I was learning Protoss, when I was trying to level up all my races, I could look at the nifty Protosses, like the very speedy, quick ones, or I could look at the more like thought out Protosses. And that isn't me saying slow. But Gerald definitely kind of went with a I'm not going to be super fancy, I'm just going to be good approach. So like if you are a Protoss out there that is trying to work his way up to be a more solid Protoss, there's definitely players like Gerald that follow a more methodical approach as opposed to all the fancy stuff. So definitely a decent, well-rounded Protoss, and there's similar guys to the other races as well. Like you get the Marus of the world, exceedingly flashy, right? Like the Beyonds, very flashy. But then you get like the Cures that are very well-rounded overall. Like for me, Cure being a Korean version of Hero Breed, really, like solid stats across the board kind of thing. But yeah, it's interesting to think of players like that.
Absolutely. I actually think Lambo is a pretty good choice as well if you're looking for like a more standard, straightforward macro Zerg. Lambo in many ways also not particularly flashy with his decision making. I mean, sometimes he obviously does have those spicy builds that he comes up with, and he certainly can bring the cheese as well, but his average game is very macro oriented, and in much of the same way as maybe Gerald is struggling a little bit with the strength of guys like MaxPax or, for example, Skillers or Showtime, Lambo also gets overshadowed a bit by other players like, for example, Raynor, like, for example, Serral, and for good reason, right? They're very good players. He plays a very similar playstyle to pretty much all the other top-level Zergs. It's just that the other Zergs seem to have been a little bit more successful over the years, and I'm not really expecting any crazy strategies in this series, at least not compared to some of the previous series that we've had on the stream here today. It's going to be a Twilight Council, though, to get things started off here by Gerald. I don't hate it when especially you force your opponent's third base as their very first expansion, but I feel like this is one of those builds that Lambo has under lock and key. He's played against this so many times.
He has, and Lambo is extremely fast. In fact, can we bring up the APM tab just momentarily here? I know it's... So it says 1,100 average for Lambo. Now, the boy has a lot of those rapid-fire binds that he's
got 4 hands, man. That's what he's got.
Yeah, he flicks them off at the start, so that APM was just massively high. But he's actually quite a quick player when you watch him. Like, he gets around all over the shot. But no, you're right. Like, Serral, Raynor definitely hold the throne for the
real quick, so Gerald, sorry to cut you off, but he hasn't started up anything. Oh, he's going straight Templar Archives. Now, that is not what I expected. I assumed this was going to be like a Glaive Adept opener every time, but no.
No, I mean, it is strange. You're absolutely right. Lambo kind of holds that. A prince of Zerg in the European region, right? Like him and Elisa, both solid around a similar level. But going up against Gerald, this absolutely, he is the favorite. Like, he absolutely is. He's just a really solid Zerg all round, and Lambo's had moments where he came second in that like NetEase Chinese tournament a while ago at that point, but he looked really damn fierce, and he's had times where he can kind of take maps off Serral and really threaten players like him. So yeah, Lambo's looking like he should be kind of a top 8, top 12 lock-in in Europe, and yeah, so far he's doing a good job. He doesn't quite know what he's up against, sees this War Prism now, but yeah, Gerald's done things in a very funny way.
Yeah, I think this is going to be some sort of Archon drop. He is making an Immortal on the back of it too, which is a bit funky. I think we're just going to ferry a unit now on over towards the third base. This is a very curious build right here from Gerald. Not really opening up in the way that we ordinarily see in his matchup. So to put it in perspective, oh, nice little pickup there. Generally, if it's like a Stargate opener with an Oracle coming up, usually the third base for Protoss starts up at about 3 minutes and 45-ish seconds. So essentially a full minute earlier than this. So all of this has now led up into a single Archon with, I think, now also a single Immortal. He's gonna have to make up for the fact that his Nexus here is quite late, all things considered. I mean, partially it's already made up for because Lambo made a ton of units at home. Also a little concerned about what could be going on inside of the base of the Protoss. But this kind of strikes me as one of those builds where Lambo could have already been sitting at 66 workers and he would have run away with the victory.
if he knew what he was against, you're absolutely right. But the thing is, you got to remember, like, him getting this Archon with a Warp Prism to defend this third, and that's all it's done so far, that cost a Twilight Council, 150, 100, a Templar Archives, 150, 200, the Robo, 150, 150, and then you're talking about the 2 High Templars and the Warp Prism as well. Like,
super pricey.
That is a massive investment into doing what an Oracle could have done, like with a start.
Yeah.
When you
and the Oracle has a lot more mid-game utility too, right? Like that unit gets so much value and harassment potential. Like this is
scouts, yeah. It's a massive investment. So Lambo on his side of things, look at that. Like the drone count, often at this point, it's kind of I want to say almost neck and neck, maybe even Protoss favored. And that third base of the Protoss was late. This build by Gerald has set him back quite a chunk without Lambo actually having had to do anything. So I don't actually dislike what Lambo's done here. Now he's going to have a really stocky army with Immortals and Archons and Storm, but Zerg is very good at being Zerg. Like, look at that creep spread, Loco. We're seeing that really flourish across the map. Lambo is getting up to 4 bases as well, kind of uncontested. And all he's going to have to do is make sure that he's aware of what's coming out of this base and when it's coming out, which Gerald might have just sneaked out without these Zerglings actually spotting anything.
Yeah, I was just gonna say that. I think this push is already ready to go. Now, this little Zergling move here is actually huge. He doesn't really get any damage done, but the entire Protoss army turns around. Gerald starts up a Forge on the back of this. I actually thought he had a moment over here where he could certainly catch the Zerg off guard. I mean, we have 14 Roaches out at this point, but Storm is done. We've got ourselves a group of 3 Immortals here, 2 Archons in the mix as well. With a good number of gateways, we have 8 in total. I think Gerald could have certainly punished the opponent here quite a bit. He's still going to go ahead and try. This is the first time that Lambo sees what he's really going up against, but, well, Roaches have quite a bit of health, and it's not like those Storms are going to be amazing against them. But those Immortals, though, are still putting in some work here from a distance.
Oh, I mean, actually, these Storms, Lambo not splitting at all against it, really. And big connections from those Storms, but that went about as good as it could for Gerald, I feel. And still, Lambo's got quite a lot on the field here, Loco. I mean, those Archons are going to start getting low. One down immediately, another one's on half shield here, and Lambo still has a very okay economy behind it. 16 Roaches in production as well. That's about as best Gerald could have hoped for, and still, I'm not necessarily sure if he's ahead this game.
The thing is, no drones really were killed, right? If he loses those Immortals, that would be massive. One at least goes down, second and third do get picked up, but only 2 workers were killed at this point in this game. And you brought up the 4th base. Well, it turns out it's more like a backup 3rd in the end. Maybe not originally the intention for that base, but Lambo still has good economy on the back of this. He definitely did not expect Storm, though. I think he was also looking at this early game here. He's like, what in the world's going on? And ultimately, I guess the 3rd and the 4th Storm, I think is what it was. They were the ones that dealt a lot of damage, but this is a very curious build here by Gerald. I don't believe this is one of those strategies that you can really bring multiple times in a series, because next time Lambo sees a similar start, I think he's going to be all over it. But at least in game number 1 of this series, it's working out decently well. I don't want to say it's great, because he's still, in a rough spot, especially a bit out of position right now, too. That 4th Nexus just gets cancelled immediately, but yeah, it's an interesting start.
One observer does fall to those biles there. Lambo's just got so much, man. Like, this build that he did, it's one of those tricky situations where it's like, all right, if it didn't work here, when will it work? And I think it was units getting into the main and natural over here. Lambo's actually handling this very well right now. The Storms are huge, though. Like, those are really huge Storms, and Gerald probably will be able to hold. Gonna lose an Immortal, maybe, to those Zerglings in the main base. That is kind of brutal from him. Just survive it. No, getting killed there. But Lambo, 16 probes killed amidst all of this. He's handling it very well after a kind of weird opening from Gerald.
I like that he's droning a little bit over here. He's also thrown down the Infestation Pit. It's very easy to get caught on just his Roach Ravager and Ling Bane-based army. He could even go into Swarmhost if he's feeling really fancy, but I don't think he needs to. Just going into a Hive and getting yourself a couple of those Vipers going here would be an amazing addition for Lambo. The drones were added on relatively late, all things considered, and he still has a very big, stocky army here, right? I do think we're getting to the point where we want to start trading out at least some of those units in favor of some of those Protoss units, because Disruptors are coming up, and those Disruptors are really scary. He just continues attacking here, though. Almost like soft-containing the opponent a little bit on just 3 bases.
Yeah, and when you look at the mineral bases of Gerald, like the main base, starting to get mined out. Pretty damn hardcore here. He put a lot of probes down. He's missing probes in certain bases as well. Like, he definitely...
Oh, yeah, he lost a lot. Yeah, he lost a lot when those units came in. Now the Bailings, oh my god, get another 11 kills. It's a Brute Lord transition on the horizon here for Lambo, and there's pretty much no unit available currently for Gerald that can reliably deal with that. Don't lose the Prism. Oh, no. Yeah, now it's going from bad to worse. Look at the supply count at this point, too.
Yeah, Lambo's in his playground, man. He really is. Like, he's been all over the 4th base attempts. I think this is, like, the 4th or 5th time he's trying to take a Nexus on a 4th base, and Lambo's sitting pretty on his side of the map. And creep spread got a bit thwarted here. Lambo's been focused on doing the tech up and just keeping his opponent at bay. And you can really see, like, it doesn't really feel like Gerald's got a super opening here. He's going to hope for a fight to go very right, but this army of Lambo, this isn't even his full army, but I feel this is almost more than enough to deal with what Gerald has, and Lambo feels it too. He's got a lot on the other side of the map.
Yeah, he needs to go right now. Gerald realizes that Brute Lords are going to just be about a minute or so away. Lambo also knows it, of course, and he decides to, well, give up this base. Maybe he won't have time to really make that greater Spire here, but still, if this fight takes place on creep against Roach Ravager and Ling Bane, it's still going to hit like a truck. He's getting a ton of damage done on the other side of the map. What Gerald needs right now is a lucky Disruptor hit. He needs one of those Disruptors to connect in the middle of this Zerg ball, because otherwise he's going to be in a world of trouble.
And one Baneling for its troubles is not it. Remember, he's lost his 3rd base. That was his healthiest base besides his 4th base that's got nothing on it. And Lambo right now, he's just, every trade is a good one for him. Like, yeah, he lost some drones on his side of the map. Doesn't really need them. He's 70 versus 28 right now. Just good macro game, good basics for him. Even if he loses a base at this point, it's not the worst thing. These are pretty nice, though.
Yeah, those storms are certainly not bad. Lambo not making use of the Hive just yet, just trying to flood the map with more and more Zerglings, and I think that is the right call here, because Geralt is just running out of steam very quickly. All that Lambo really needs to do is somehow, some way, deal with that opponent's army, right? So, I mean, the win condition in a game of StarCraft is to kill all of your opponent's structures. It's not usually relevant, but ultimately those roaches here, they're slowly okay, well, never mind. Now it's not going to happen anymore, but they are working through a lot of those structures. And even in a full-on base race, I don't think that Geralt has enough stuff to, yeah, kill any of these Zerg structures by the time that he loses everything at home. So, okay, once again, good storm over there to get things started off. Decent, what do you call it, purification Nova here as well, but ultimately there's just way too much Zerg.
Way too much. The Immortals left behind to deal with units they're meant to be good against, but there's just so damn many of them. And Gerald, with the most wounded eco of all time, is still trying to make units. And maybe now he's going to be like, oh, yeah, this is not good for me. Not good for me at all. This is a bit of Bly GG timing here. Is, yeah, that's it. That's all he has. That's all he's ever going to have in this game. And he's still going to try and make use of it. Maybe using the time to be like, all right, first game of the day kind of thing.
Yeah.
Let's kind of, you know, lick my wounds, get back into it later on. But yeah, he is dead as a dodo.
No, absolutely. That, I think it was just mostly him trying to think about the second game of this series, right? Because where exactly did this go wrong? So the early game, it was interesting. Normally what we see from Protoss in Protoss versus Zerg is them trying to harass the Zerg to try and slow down their economy in whatever way they can. Usually that leads towards a macro game where we see maybe some Blink Stalker follow-ups, that sort of thing. This was a different opener here from Geralt, where it ultimately led towards what seemed like a Immortal Archon High Templar with Storm timing attack, and it looked for a moment like it was gonna catch Lambo off guard. The problem is that yeah, he was delayed a bunch of times. Those Zerglings came into his natural expansion. He decided to turn his entire army around. I think ultimately, Lambo, with very small amounts of units, bought like half a minute of time. And that, I think, just allowed him barely enough units to survive against that very first attack. Because I think that could have hit like a truck. And we would have been all about this build, you know, if it would have worked there when he first went across. But yeah, I don't see him going for another build like that, because it would just be so difficult to pull off.
Yeah, it's one of those things where it's like, if Gerald played against a worse Zerg that was like, oh my god, what's happening, and just kind of overreacted in one way or another, it would have been really bad. But he slowed himself down so much, and it was something that Lambo absolutely realized as well. So even though Lambo had all these units on the field that can't deny that third, you see a Warp Prism, and you see a Archon in it, and you're like, hold on a minute. Like, I talked about it, and it was like, that is literally like 3 tech structures and a lot of money on the Warp Prism, a lot of money on the High Templars and Archon itself to do the job that something for literally like a fifth of the cost could have done. So as soon as Lambo saw that, he realized like, oh, well, you know, you've slowed yourself down enough here. I'm just going to macro out of this. Like, this is great for me. And he played solid, got a good army out. Granted, he did sit in storms a little bit too much there, but you still saw how well a situation he planted himself in, and that's just through good knowledge of the game. So nice play from this man over here, spawning in the bottom right of Oceanborn as our blue Zerg. It is Shopify Rebellion's Lambo.
And up here in the top left-hand corner, going for a very interesting strategy in game number 1, it's Gerald. Or Gerald.
Gerald, you know.
It's just like Oceanborn or Ocean, Bo-RN. I don't know. How do you pronounce anything in StarCraft these days?
You know, I had those fans of The Witcher telling me, like, it's Geralt, okay? And yeah, it's Geralt in that, but it's spelled different, isn't it?
I think it's with a T at the end. Like, I know Geralt also, though, has his... I don't actually know exactly how it works. But I know that the Protoss player, the one in this game, I know he also spells his name with a T sometimes, just to make it extra confusing for everybody. I think the original version of it... Okay, I might get the details wrong here, but I think the original Geralt the Witcher is spelled with a T. And I think it is based on that, but Geralt just thought the D looked better, so he decided to put a D there at the end of the word rather than a T, but I think it is supposed to be a reference. It's complex, man, to the point where, you know, he may as well be called Alcyone, or maybe like a Hecate or something like that, you know?
Absolutely. I mean, the man, like, for those that don't know, once upon a time, Gerald had a magic mustache, much like those magicians have, you know, like proper curled on up. And given that we're in No Shave November, maybe I'll work myself towards one of those.
He had a castle as well, man.
Yeah, I mean, when you see that room he was playing, and it was phenomenal. But I have spoken to him in real life. I have asked him, is it Gerald or Geralt? And, you know, he was kind of okay with both. So don't worry too much. You know, these people saying hard lead out there that get all uppity, or the really weird ones that say oregano or cilantro instead of coriander. Like, those are absolutely blasphemous, I tell you. Okay, Stargate on the way for Gerald this game, so far more normal out of him. It's actually kind of nice to see.
Yeah. I mean, Lambo obviously always deals with incomplete information, but in theory, what he could have done in that previous game, if he knew exactly what Geralt was going for, was go up to like 75 drones and then make an army. He could have quite literally just not made any attacking units up until like minute 7. Okay, maybe not quite 7, maybe a minute earlier than that, but there is a situation out there where the Zerg goes for, say, for example, Overlord speed and figures out exactly what the Protoss is going for. It's not a very popular build for Zerg in the current meta, but if Lambo would have known exactly what he was playing against, he would have walked all over that army. And he ultimately still kind of did. It was still not particularly close, but yeah, that was Lambo playing a very conservative game, making a good amount of units here and there, and not just going straight onto the drone button. Now, it's going to be a Void Ray first here this time around. What do you think, Demo?
Unusual.
Yeah.
I think, I mean, these two Adepts getting in here, like, I kind of remember this being a thing. Like, Zergs, I don't want to say they've got worse with the Adept early on, but Protoss have been better about catching Zergs off guard with just the early Adept stuff, which is kind of cool. But Lambo, upon seeing this, knows he can drone up quite crazily. Like, that Void Ray will deal with this Overlord, but it takes a long time to get across the map. And I think he spotted that it was an Oracle afterwards as well. And Lambo's good about the scouting. Even here, denying this probe, that in his mind, maybe that probe had 400 minerals available to drop down to Nexus immediately. Still, it's a good pick off by Lambo. I'm not sure about the early Void Ray stuff. I think it slows down the Protoss quite a lot.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of the high-level Protoss players mess it up, or mix it up a lot with a Void Ray first as well as of late, so MaxSpecs has been messing around with it a little bit. The idea, yeah, okay, so we drop a second Stargate here. Usually the idea behind the Void Ray first is that you can deny your opponent's scouting very reliably, so Lambo is not likely to get any vision of what's happening inside of that main base of the Protoss until maybe an Overseer comes in. But Lambo won't be going for a lair until maybe just about a minute or so from now, maybe a little bit earlier than that, but there's no denying that Lambo is going to be in the dark for a while, and it looks like it's going to be double Stargate Phoenix, which I mean, the Void Ray opener is pretty uncommon, but I think double Stargate Phoenix even more so. That is not something that we see very often at all. And again, that's because Zerg players, much like against the Void Ray start, they can just hold down the drone button. Like, you're gonna lose some stuff, but generally you don't lose the game against Phoenixes alone.
Yeah, this is actually very interesting from Gerald. Like, double Stargate Phoenix is from like an era where it was a normal opening a long time ago. Like when Zest used to play back, like, you know, 3 years ago, it definitely went through an era, and then Zergs kind of figure it out. They start doing lots of Nidus shenanigans, and, you know, it becomes less popular. The ebb and flow of StarCraft 2, if you will. But yeah, right now Lambo doesn't know what's happening on the other side of the map. Drone count's still very respectable, and he's getting out quite a good amount of units. He was very good about when he got his Spore Crawlers out. He wasn't too late about it. Lovely positioning from these Adepts, by the way. That is very annoying to deal with, but Lambo's doing a good job of not letting it catch him too crazily. But still, the Adepts find eco damage. Now, Gerald needs this. He absolutely does, because remember, his third base was denied for quite some time.
This is way more workers, though, than we normally see killed by just Adept. I think pretty much all of the workers, 10 in total in this game, have been killed by Adepts here. Maybe 1 or 2 by that Oracle, but not bad whatsoever right here by our Protoss player. My main question here is whether or not he can actually get value out of those Phoenixes, and that's usually where things just look a little bit shaky. It's going to be a ton of gateways on the back of this, too. We don't have Charge, we don't have Glaive Adept or anything along those lines here to really follow this up. So, yeah, these Phoenixes will have to get damage in. Zerglings, in the meantime, getting some work done at the third base, trying to deny the natural here for a bit, but nice re-walling there by the Protoss.
I've got a feeling that Gerald's in a lot of trouble, man. Like,
yeah.
Like, these Phoenix absolutely are here, and Lambo's like, what? Like, Clay, we got 70 Phoenix. And actually, as a result, they aren't dying to the Queens. They're just kind of...
They're not microed.
Here. And he's making Banelings on the aggressive. Like, Lambo feels like he can get a lot of damage done with this, and he absolutely might be right here. The supplies are deceivingly close. Gerald trying to get out Void Rays out of the Stargates, realizing that he's going to be under a lot of pressure here.
Let's see if he can maybe break through this gateway wall as well. We already have a bunch of probes going down, though, and I think he can just, right-click in there. I mean, nice force field at the very least, saving the majority of that mineral line, but this is now going to turn into an uphill battle. We've got Lambo transitioning into a Hydra Den. Maybe not his favorite unit in the game, but certainly a good one in this particular scenario. Gerald doesn't really have any unit producing structures on the back of this, so he has a bunch of gateways, I guess, but there's no high tech. Okay, we're going to be going into a Templar Archives with Charge? I mean, if we wanted to do that, we could have done it a minute ago.
Could have. I mean, Gerald was absolutely playing the I'm going to try and catch you off guard game, and Gerald's tried to throw 2 weird E builds in the mix against Lambo, making me think that he wasn't uber confident going into this matchup against him. And Lambo so far, he's passing all the tests, man. Like, Hydras are going to be pretty damn good against everything that he's making. And remember, like, upgrade-wise, he's going into +2 melee here for those Zerglings and Banelings. Gerald doesn't even have a Forge alive. So the longer this game goes on, the better upgrade. And look, just catching units off guard, out of position, denying the 4th base while this is going on as well with a bunch of Lings over in the north. Lambo's playing very solidly. Granted, won't be able to deny that. There were some Voids in position, and the Phoenix finally getting across the map do get to spot what he's up against next, at least.
I really don't like the Phoenixes very much here. Like, usually if you do play Phoenixes, you want to be killing tons of drones. 13 drones is not bad at all, but it's mostly those couple of Adepts at the start of this game that got most of those worker kills. Usually what we see with Phoenixes is they swoop into a mineral line, kill about half of it, and then they go back home again as well to defend too. So you buy yourself a lot of time to ultimately tech up as the Protoss, but they haven't really gotten any value out of themselves at all in this game. Lambo's going to be able to deal a ton of damage with the army that he's got. I mean, if we're lifting up Zerglings, that's when, you know, things are getting desperate. The Banelings going for the Templar. I mean, he morphs in an Archon, but that is still so expensive with Storm just about to finish up.
Yeah, those Banelings were so good, right? And I mean, the Phoenix Oracle can actually do somewhat good against the Hydras to some degree here. They're all light, and honestly, this is a messier fight than Lambo was hoping for. Can you imagine if this had Storm as well? Gerald would have maybe owned it. And Lambo is probably like, oh man, like, well, why are you still alive right now? I want you dead. I want you out of this game. Lambo has to go home, recoup, get his forces together, and Gerald's probably quite happy with how that did so far, but probably feeling like he also needs to get something done. He needs to keep Lambo on the other side of the map.
These are some very fun, but also very uncomfortable game to watch. I don't know if you get the same feeling when you watch games like this, where you're like, ugh, this all just makes very little sense, but it's also kind of working at the same time, but I feel like it's not great. Recall is going to be forced over here with this Zergling run by, as Lambo is once again getting some damage in. But you know what? Gerald has been fantastic at mitigating a lot of that damage, right? I mean, remember that force field at the third base when the Banes were just about to hit him? It's 21 probes in total in this game, but Gerald's still at 70. He is going into the +1 air weapons as well. He is making that transition towards, well, better units over time. I'm still not in love with this unit composition, but it is working, at least somewhat.
Yeah, Phoenix are actually surprisingly good against Hydra compositions, as long as the Hydra count isn't ridiculous.
Yeah.
Especially combined with Storm here. Like, the army of Gerald's a little bit hard to manage. It's going into Blink and +1 air weapons before, like, ground upgrades, which is interesting. Lambo has to be careful, though. Like, that army, like, both the armies are kind of brittle, right? Like, Banelings can obviously sweep the floor. The Hydras can deal with the air, but in conjunction with the Storms and how they're going to land, like, they're both looking for one big sweeping victory here, just to try and win out the game, and they're both missing each other on the map. This is so strange.
Yeah, there's a ton of creep spread. For somehow, some way, Gerald has cleared a path for himself across the map that is unscouted. So that base at the 6 o'clock is going to be destroyed in a heartbeat. But I'm with you. I think this fight here in total is going to last about 2 seconds, because both players are going to try and kill the opponent as quickly as possible.
Oh, and that's all the High Templars gone. Those Banelings had a mission, and they won in that mission. Lambo's also dealing damage in the north base, and Gerald, that very brittle army that he had.
Whoa.
You don't often see just a bunch of Hydras in a mineral line, do you?
No, I expected a Ling Bane counterattack there 100%, but for some reason we're sending in the Hydras instead. They got rid of that base very quickly. Gerald is now at the point, though, where his main and his natural are going to start running very low, right? And that's right around the 12-minute mark or so that you're needing a 4th base for sure, because you're just running out of steam with the economy that you've got. And Lambo destroying that base puts him in a phenomenal spot here now, even though all of these trades have been a little bit wishy-washy and not my absolute favorite. I think ultimately Lambo is going to be able to destroy this. He really doesn't need to be too aggressive here, but he's going to just try and see if he can maybe win the game here.
I feel like Lambo's wanted Gerald out of the game for a while, and his army is, like, unit composition so much better. So much better. And he's just got way more as well. And behind it, remember, he's on 5 bases, and it's a 3-base Protoss losing absolutely everything. And Gerald, this game, the writing is on the wall here, Loco. It absolutely is. There's just so much Zerg in his face here.
Some spicy strategies, though, from Gerald. I really do like what he ended up doing in these games, even though it did